Good morning, afternoon, or evening. So this video is made for students who will not be here with me during academic enrichment today, students who have chorus or leave early or whatever that may be. I do want to make sure that you see several of the problems from the rational numbers review worksheet, so you do want to make sure you have the rational numbers review worksheet out. And we're going to cover several of the questions from there, starting with number 13, which is a problem that you can use a calculator for. So let's read through number 13. Let's take a look at it. And again, I want to remind you, you can use a calculator for this question. The problem says, the table shows the amount of snowfall above or below average for a town in 2022 and 2023. How much more snow fell in 2023 than in 2022? So what we can see is that in 2022, the snowfall was below average at a negative value, and in 2023, it was above average with a positive value. So to find the difference between those, we want to subtract those numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract those. Now you can subtract in whatever order. If you do get a negative value, you want to make sure to take the absolute value of it. So what I did first, and I'm going to show you two different methods or strategies for this, is that I took negative 3.28, the value from 2022, minus 4.62, the value that we had in 2023. And I got negative 7.9 in my calculator. You may want to double check and make sure you get the same thing. Now, I do want to take the absolute value of that because I want that to be a positive difference. It's like a distance between those two values, those two decimals. So I will take the absolute value of that. And the absolute value makes it positive. You can see these bars that represent absolute value, which means that we had 7.9 inches more falling in 2023 than 2022. And this makes sense because we were 3.28 inches below average in 2022, almost 5 inches, 4.62 inches above average in 2023. So that's about a 7 to 8 inch difference, which we can see with the answer that we got. Now, because we're trying to find the difference between 2023's value and 2022's, you can subtract in the opposite order. It does not matter which order you subtract those in. Let me pull these boxes down. If I take 4.62 minus negative 3.28, we want to make sure to be precise and use those negatives where they belong. We end up getting positive 7.9 inches. So same answer, either order we subtract them in. So I did want to show both possible options. Either way you do it, you're going to get a difference of 7.9 inches. So pretty straightforward question. You're just subtracting them to find the difference in those values. Just making sure if you get a negative value, you make it positive. All right. Question number 14, by the way, is really similar to that. So if you want to try another problem similar to that one, try number 14. We're going to take a look at number 15. The manager of Happy Puppy Dog Boarding Company begins the month with 85.4 pounds of dog food and tracks the weekly use along with the supply delivery in the middle of the month. How much dog food does the company have on hand at the end of the month? So in order to find this solution, basically we're going to add all these values. We started at 85.4 pounds. So I'm going to take my 85.4 that I started with. Whoop, let me pull that down. Sorry, my computer's being a little funky right now. There we go. Plus my negative 28.4 pounds that they used in that first week, plus negative 21 and 5/8 that they used in week 2. Now, could you do minus a positive, like 85.4 minus positive 28.4? Sure, you could do that as well. I like just putting addition signs between them. So 85.4 that we started with, plus negative 28.4 for that first week, plus negative 21 and 5/8 for the second week, plus positive 97 and 3/4 for that third week. They must have gotten that dog food delivery that week, plus negative 30.25 for that last week of the month. And then I just plug that into my calculator. Now, something I would recommend you do is double, triple check this answer, especially if you have extra time, because it's really easy to plug something in wrong here, like miss an addition sign, miss a negative sign, type the wrong number in. All of those things could happen. What you should get if you plug it into the calculator correctly is 102.875 pounds. Your calculator will likely give you a decimal, since we have more decimals in the problem. If it does give you a mixed number, that is equivalent to 102 and 7/8 pounds, but more than likely your calculator is going to give you a decimal. The other one I want to see is that last question from the review sheet, number 17, or last type of problem, I should say. I do want to also state that number 16 is pretty similar to problem number 15. So just recall that the problems that are to the right of the ones that we're looking at are going to be similar to the ones that are to the left. So it's not a bad idea to try those on your own. Please know that at some point you'll have to do all of those problems. So if you want to do them ahead of time, that's fine. Now, this last type of problem is basically evaluating using order of operations. And we're going to plug this into our calculator. So in number 17, it asks us to evaluate the expression A plus BC minus D. And they give us the value for A, B, C, and D. We basically need to plug those in and then plug it into our calculator. And again, I really want to stress that you want to make sure to double and triple check your calculations. So when I type this in, I'm going to type in 3/4 plus BC, which is -5/9 times -0.8, minus D, which is -4 2/3. Now, you could rewrite -0.8 as -4/5. Those are equivalent. You don't have to do that. When we plug this into our calculators, my calculator is going to give me this pretty nasty decimal, and that's why it says to use bar notation if necessary. It's going to give me -3.472 with just the 2 repeating. So it'll be -3.47222222, and it'll keep going to the end of the calculator. Now, luckily, the calculators I have in the class will change that to a mixed number. So if it said write your answer as a mixed number, your calculator, if you have one of mine, will change it into a mixed number. All you have to do is hit second and then the PRB button, probability button. It's diagonal from the second button, and hit equals once that with that decimal in there, of course, and it'll change it to a mixed number for you. It may not be a bad idea to practice that, just to practice changing between fractions and decimals, and it will give you -3 and 17/36. It's not a really nice decimal for us. I think the one on your quiz is a little bit of a nicer decimal. It doesn't say to write it as a fraction, but I thought it was good for us to maybe practice that in the calculator. So you may want to practice that. If you're having a hard time, I know I've had at least one student ask me, how do I find the fraction and decimal button on my calculator since it's a different one? Feel free to ask, feel free to check in with me. If I can't find it, or if you don't have one of those buttons, you're always welcome to borrow one of my calculators as well. And again, that is going to be with that decimal in the calculator or with the fraction, depending. Hit the second key along with the PRB button, and you'll see F and then like some arrows in D, and then hit the equal button or the enter button, and it will change it from a fraction to a decimal or vice versa. All right, the other two that I want you to take a look at that I plan on doing during academic enrichment is having students try numbers 8 and 10. Number 8 is very similar to number 7. Number 10 is really similar to number 9. What I would recommend is maybe trying this question and then checking it using the video, both for numbers 8 and 10. It's up to you, but it's probably a good idea to try it on your own. So number 8 on that review sheet again says, what is 11/16 times -3.2? Write your answer as a decimal. We'll probably show you both the fraction and the decimal version of that. So we have 11/16, and that's not a common fraction that I'm familiar with, but -3.2 is the same as -3 and 1/5. So it's maybe not a bad idea to write that as -3 and 1/5. Then from there, don't forget when we multiply and divide, we have to make mixed numbers into improper fractions. So -3 and 1/5 is the same as -16/5. When we cross reduce, we can reduce both the 16, so we can cross those out. Let me go ahead and grab the bar to cross those out since we have the same number. Now, we could divide those both by 16s, but they will become ones regardless. So we basically end up with an 11 on the top and a 5 on the bottom, and we have one negative, so our answer will be negative. So we'll have -11/5. And then we're going to write that as a mixed number. So 5 goes into 11 2 times to get us to 10. That's a remainder of 1/5. Now, I did also write it as a decimal. I think the directions asked for that. 1/5 is equivalent to 0.2, so this will be equivalent or equal to -2.2. Again, I want to strongly recommend, I think I've done that in several of the videos, I want to recommend that you do study the fractions and decimals to convert. All right, we have one other one to take a look at from this review sheet, and that is number 10. So number 10 says, what is the value of the expression a over b if a equals 7/11 and b equals -5/7? Write your answer as a fraction in simplest form. So a over b means a divided by b. So I right away wrote 7/11 divided by -5/7. Don't forget, when we're dividing fractions, we do the keep, change, flip. So we'll keep 7/11, change division to multiplication, and flip our -5/7 into -7/5. Unfortunately, 7 and 11 do not reduce. 7 and 5 do not reduce. So we have to multiply straight across. 7 times 7 is 49. 11 times 5 is 55. We have one negative, so our answer is negative. And we end up with -49/55. It did not say to write it as a decimal, thank goodness, so we don't have to do that. That's not one that I know off the top of my head. This one is not an improper fraction. Sometimes I'll have students try to rewrite this as -1 and something, but the top number is already smaller than the bottom number. So we're going to leave that as it is, and that is our final solution. I do want to remind you, if you're watching this video because you're not with me for academic enrichment, please, I beg of you, if you have questions about any of these things, bring them either to me Friday morning during morning homeroom, bring them to me before the quiz. We'll start that about halfway through the period. I am very happy to answer any questions you may have, but you've got to take some responsibility and make sure you ask me those questions so that I can help you. Keep in mind, we've got a quiz coming up, so again, practice this stuff, study that list of fractions and decimal conversions, and hopefully you will find success. Thanks for listening.